This is the Moonlight Graham Show, a freewheeling conversation with the role players, the underdogs, and guys with flat-out great stories in sports.
Hello and welcome back to the Moonlight Graham Show. Once again, I'm your host, Tim Flattery, and this is the podcast where we celebrate the role players and the underdogs in sports. Neil Flattery is back. We haven't done like a Moonlight Baseball Hour in a little bit of time. I figured it's time for Moonlight Baseball Hour, but it's also CyHawk Week. So one thing that I've noticed, and I wanted to talk about CyHawk Week here on the pod this week, was this year in particular, I've seen more sandbagging from both fan bases than I think I've ever seen before, Neil, and I want to get your take on it. I guess my original thought on this game coming into the season was Kirk Ferentz owns Matt Campbell. The game is at Kinnick Stadium, hard place to win. And my expectation coming into the year was this wasn't going to be really a game, that the Hawkeyes were just going to roll Iowa State as usual during the Campbell era, and we're just going to move on. Then week one happens where Iowa's offense looks as bad as Division I offense maybe has ever looked. The Hawkeye fans were booing Spencer Petras in the first quarter of the first game of the season. And Iowa State came out, and even though they lost most of their offense from last year, they looked pretty good. And so now we're in this situation where Campbell has still never beat Ferentz. The game is still at Kinnick Stadium, yet both fan bases are trying to temper their excitement about possibly winning the game, Neil.
Yeah, I think you kind of laid it out there pretty clearly, Tim. And I agree with you, but I also think this is the sandbagging in particular is something that you see every year, because as one person I saw put it on your Twitter feed when you posed this question, or at least you made this statement, it was like it's worse to get it hurts more to get beat by your rival than it's fun to win. And so like you do the sandbagging because you want to temper the pain of defeat when you lose. And so like if you sandbag by saying, oh, our offense sucks, and the Hawks, if they win, it's only going to be because Iowa State sucks, or whatever the case may be, however you lay it out, so that at least you make the case there that even if things go terribly, you weren't like strutting yourself before the game happened. And so you're tempering your expectations a little bit.
Right. You don't want to, you're setting yourself up. So when worst case scenario happens, you can say, I told you so. And also in the back of your mind, you're like, well, it's not going to hurt as bad if I didn't expect to win. But earlier this week, I had maybe the most obnoxious Hawkeye fan that I know call me up. And usually he's the type of guy that never is sandbagging. He's always in the camp of Iowa State is the little brother, and Iowa State will never beat Iowa. They'll never be on our level. He calls me up and he spends 15 minutes telling me about how great Iowa State was and how bad Iowa was. And now on the flip side, as a Cyclone fan, a battered Cyclone fan I was doing the exact same thing in the other direction. I was telling him about how great Iowa was and how bad Iowa State was. And after the call, I just got a kick out of it because I've never said so many great things about the Iowa program in a 20-minute stretch. And I guarantee this guy had never said so many great things about the Iowa State program in a 20-minute stretch. So, Neil, if you're the sandbagger, what's your case? Let's say you're the Hawkeye fan. You're a University of Iowa grad. You're the Hawkeye fan in this scenario. What is the sandbagging case for why Iowa State should beat Iowa if you're the Hawkeye fan?
Well, the sandbagging case is that Iowa Hawkeyes have been, they've been throwing out Petras for the last 3 years, and he's repeatedly shown that he can't consistently make the throws, and we saw that last week. Like, obviously Iowa's offense isn't clicking right now. I think it's much easier from my standpoint to make the anti-Iowa case. And I feel like a lot of the sandbagging that's coming from Iowa fans right now isn't necessarily like this ho-hum pro Iowa State case. It's they're just crapping on their own team. Because specifically Petrus and to a lesser extent Brian Ferentz. So that's what I'm seeing a lot. I feel like you see this a lot every year when you talk to, at least specifically fans on both sides who aren't like the extremes on both sides. A lot of them are very, careful not to put any like extreme takes out there because they know if the game goes the other way, those takes are going to come back to haunt them. And you see it more in this era of Twitter where like your takes live on forever on Twitter. So it's easily to get owned if you come out with this really strong take on the opposite side and then the game comes around and your take proves to be wrong. But yeah, so what's your sandbagging Iowa take?
So my sandbagging Iowa tape, obviously it starts with Petrus and then it goes to Brian Ferentz. And then it goes to losing Tyler Linderbaum as the center. I think the thing that surprised most Iowa fans last week was not that Petrus was missing wide open receivers. I think it was mostly that they couldn't run the ball, and all of a sudden the line looked like a mess, which is something we haven't really seen in the Ferentz era. So I think that's the case for Iowa. It's Ferentz frustration, punting on your own 39, Brian Ferentz running the offense, the line stinks, and Petrus can't hit the open receiver. And you got these Ferentzes that are running the offense that are completely obstinate to change. And apparently the backup, who we already know stinks, is going to be better. But obviously Padilla stinks too. We saw him last year.
Yeah, because I feel like the classic sandbagging case for Iowa fans.
And then the other part of it is, like, we haven't mentioned Iowa yet. Or Iowa State yet in this scenario. The other part of the Iowa sandbagging case is Campbell's got to beat Ferentz at some point. This is the year that it happens. You add Iowa State into the mix there too.
I'm just saying the sandbagging case that I would hear from Iowa fans every year, and more so when there was years where Iowa State had won a few in a row, it would always be, this is Iowa State's Super Bowl. So, you expect them to come out and give 110%. Whereas, Iowa State, they got Minnesota or Penn State next week. So they're probably overlooking Iowa State a little bit. And so that's the sandbagging case I had always heard years and years and years for Iowa fans. So I feel like I'm used to it. And
that's a good point. That's a good point. I forgot about that part of it where I feel like that's gone to the wayside a little bit this year. I've not heard that one yet. But I have in the past, it's always like Wisconsin's our biggest rival, Minnesota's our second biggest rival, and then probably Nebraska or Iowa State is third, tied for third. I don't know. We kind of ignore both of them. It's obviously not true, but it's just hilarious to hear it every year.
Yeah, I know. And like I said, I haven't heard that much this year because they can't make that case anymore. I think that's maybe why you're hearing different things because Iowa State hasn't won for 5 or 6 years. So you can't make this is Iowa State's Super Bowl case because Iowa State's actually won meaningful games outside of Iowa, but they haven't won the Iowa game recently. So I don't know.
Right. And then the sandbagging case for Iowa State, of course, is, they lost Brock Purdy. They lost Breece Hall. They lost Charlie Kohler. And if they were never going to beat Iowa with those guys, how are they going to beat them with a completely new offensive roster and a first-year starting quarterback? I think that, and plus it's at Kinnick Stadium and Campbell's never beaten Iowa. Plus you add in the Iowa factor where the thing that is not being talked about enough this week is Iowa's defense might be really, really good. And they've obviously got the best punter in college football in Torrey Taylor. To a typical team that wouldn't be a big deal, to a Kirk Ferentz type of team where Kirk Ferentz just loves to punt, Torrey Taylor's actually a weapon.
Yeah. And I just don't know enough about this Iowa State team because, like you mentioned, I feel like they're throwing out they lost so many of their guys. I just don't know what to expect with them. And I don't feel like we learned a lot maybe with their game last week because that team might have been really bad. I don't know. But it will be interesting. God, I had something else to say.
I like about the Iowa State team this year is we finally got an Iowa guy at quarterback. Like, when was the last time Iowa State was it Sage Rosenfels? Or no, I guess Brett Meyer, Austin Arnaud, those guys were Iowa guys as well. So I forgot about those guys. But it's been a while. It's been since Austin Arnaud, I believe, that we've had an Iowa guy as a quarterback. And so it is fun. Hunter Deckers is this Paul Bunyan type of character where he was late on the scene in the recruiting scene. And all of a sudden he popped kind of out of nowhere to win like the 7-on-7 national championship. And he became this like, hey, this kid out of small town Iowa, Northwest Iowa, is really popping, and he might be a 4 or 5-star recruit here. He comes to Iowa State. He sticks with his commitment there. And you look at him, especially compared to Brock Purdy, he is big, he's strong, he's fast, he's got a cannon for an arm. Now, I don't know if he's a great quarterback or not, but there's a lot to like there with Deckers.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing is I don't trust the lefty at quarterback, but that's just kind of biased. I don't know.
You don't trust who?
I just don't trust it coming out of the left arm.
Oh, yeah, lefty.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on the CyHawk game, Neil?
I just think, especially for Hawk fans who are making these sandbagging cases, it's going to be so much more fun for them specifically when they've been saying our offense is terrible, so Iowa State should beat us this year. If Iowa does end up winning, it's going to be so much more fun to them to say, wow, we beat you and we have Petrus at quarterback.
Right.
So that's part of it too. But
yeah, I mean, Petrus beat Penn State though.
That's true. But
Petrus
he also
has got a good record as a starting quarterback. His stats stink though.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. It'll be fun though.
All right. So prediction. Earlier this week on the pod, I predicted Iowa to cover the spread. I'll be honest, I'm going to change that prediction now. I'm not going to sandbag. I think Iowa State's going to win. I actually think I watched that Hawkeye game last week, and maybe I'm listening to too many Hawk fans, but if Petrus plays anywhere near what he played like last week and Iowa State doesn't blow it, I think Iowa State's going to win. But I mean, the Kinnick factor is huge. That it's just a really huge home field advantage, especially for this game that is Iowa's Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, Tim. It's just I'm just throwing numbers out there. I mean, I just don't think Iowa State's going to be able to score a lot on Iowa's defense, and I don't think Iowa's going to score a lot because of what we saw last week. So, I mean, I think it's going to be low scoring, but I think Iowa's going to find a way at the end to squeak out like a win by like a field goal, like 17-14 or something.
Yeah. All right. So I want to move on to a couple of Moonlight Baseball Hour topics. 3 topics I want to talk about. We'll get them off in quick order here so people don't have to listen to us talk anymore. First of all, I want to talk about Albert Pujols. Then I want to talk about Aaron Judge. And then lastly, I want to talk about Timmy Trumpets. So first of all, Albert Pujols. I have talked extensively on this podcast about Albert Pujols. First of all, like I'm not an Albert Pujols hater, for the record. I like Pujols. But I think it needs to be clear that, well, I shouldn't say, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm almost positive that this guy is not 42 years old. He claims to be 42, almost 43 years old. There's been, a lot of question marks around his birth certificate, like a lot of guys from the Dominican Republic. I think Albert Pujols, especially because he was a 13th round draft pick out of junior college. And since he was so late on the scene, I got to imagine that he was older than what people thought when he came into the major leagues. And that's part of the reason why he had so much instant success. And you saw him rocket up the minor leagues because people thought he was like 22 years old, when in reality, he was probably 24. Then you also look at his stats over the last 5 seasons. He has not been a good player. He hasn't even been an average player in the major league since like 2016. Like, look at the numbers. He's been a below average player in the major league since 2016. Then all of a sudden, in this last year of his career, he's having another just god-awful first half of the season. Then he's in the home run derby. And coming off of the home run derby, he has the greatest month of his life. Like, literally, July and August were two of the best months of his entire career. And he had a 10-day stretch in August that was the best 10-day stretch of his entire career. And this is for a guy that claims to be almost 43 years old, when in reality he's probably almost 46 years old or 45 years old. Neil, here is my new Albert Pujols theory. Well, first of all, I'm going to read you his stats from the first half of the season to the second half of the season. First half of the year, Pujols hit .215 with a .301 on base percentage. He had 6 home runs, 6 doubles. It was just atrocious. He was just a bad player, and that's what we've seen for the last 5 years. Second half of the season, he's hitting .352 with an on-base percentage of .414. In the month of August, he hit .361 with an on-base percentage of .420 and 8 home runs in August alone. So my current theory on Albert Pujols, Neil, is Albert Pujols knows this is his last year. The last probably drug testing that happens in the major leagues probably happens right after the All-Star break. He knows that he's not going to get drug tested again. He knows that his career is over. He's got nothing to lose, even if, the Cardinals happen to make the playoffs and there's a random drug test later on. But Major League Baseball is never going to want to do that to tarnish the legacy of one of its greatest right-handed hitters ever. So he took a gamble. He loaded himself up with whatever steroids that guy needed to load himself up with. And all of a sudden, he turned back the clock 10 to 15 years on himself. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I think Albert Pujols took steroids. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best explanation. I mean, it's as good of an explanation as anyone else has, because, like you mentioned, he hasn't been an above-average hitter since 2016. And his offensive production this year, and it's mostly, like you mentioned, like within the last 2 or 3 months, he's a better offensive hitter. And I know he's like not getting thrown out there every day, and he's only getting thrown out in, good situations against left-handed pitchers and all that stuff. But he's as good of a hitter as he was in, like, when he was in his prime in St. Louis, almost, at least these last couple months.
Yeah, like 15 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to go as far as to say he's on steroids, but, like, and I don't know enough about steroids. Like, can you just, like, shoot yourself up with steroids and then, like, turn back the clock 15 years and become, like, 40% better than you were before? Like, has it happened that quickly? I don't know, but
I think Pujols is proving that it's possible.
Maybe he's just, he's the Cardinals fans. He's back home and they're just cheering him on, and he's got the adrenaline pumping through his veins, and that's what's giving him the motivation. I don't know. I don't want to go as far as to say, he's on steroids. I mean, the one thing I would say is, and I don't know, I work with a Cardinals fan, so I've been, privy to the Albert Pujols, this whole run he's been on the last couple months. And so that's what it seems like this story is like it's been the biggest story in baseball for the last couple months. Is that been your impression too? Like, is it bigger than Aaron Judge?
It seems to be bigger than Aaron Judge in Iowa, at least, because we have so many Cardinals fans here in Iowa, a lot of Cubs fans here in Iowa. So we're tuned into the Cardinals a lot. But yeah, it's been a big story like that, especially in baseball too. And I think it started with Pujols looked decent at the home run derby. And coming into that, people were making a mockery of him being in the home run derby. I think he took that to heart, took the home run derby pretty seriously, did okay. And maybe he took steroids in preparation for the derby. I don't know. There's no logical explanation for what's happened here.
Yeah, I don't know, Tim. The one thing I was thinking about is with him specifically, like I still hold a lot of these milestones like in high regard, specifically the 700 home run club. And I look at Pujols and I don't view him as being on the same level as Bonds, Aaron, and Ruth. And so, like, it's not that I don't want him to get to 700 home runs, but like, I'd be okay if he stayed a little short. And because I feel like, he's been, like you said, he's probably closer to 45 years old than he is just 43 years old or whatever he's claiming his age is right now. And, if he didn't get signed to this huge contract and potentially mislead teams on his age, he probably still wouldn't be playing and wouldn't have a chance to get to 700 home runs. So his numbers are a little inflated in my book. So, like I said, I like Albert Pujols. I think he's a good guy. I think he's been good for baseball.
He's probably Catholic.
He's probably Catholic, and I like he has that. He runs like a prom for like mentally handicapped kids, which I think is cool. So I think he's a good guy. I really like Albert Pujols, and like I said, this story these last couple months have been awesome to follow. And even if he's used steroids or not, I think it's cool. But like, I don't view him. I don't know if it's good for the state of these home run milestones if Albert Pujols has 700 home runs, because I don't think he's on the same level as those other guys.
Right. So Aaron Judge is having one of the historic seasons in Major League Baseball history. He's doing it for the most famous team in Major League Baseball, the New York Yankees. We're starting to get a lot of publicity about Judge here. I don't think it's going unnoticed, but I think what maybe is going a little bit under the radar is because of what Barry Bonds did and Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire to the single season home run record, where it became, Sosa hit 65 and 66, McGwire hit 70, Bonds hit 73. You forget that the Yankees home run record is still Roger Maris at 61, Babe Ruth at 60, and no Yankee has touched that since, right? I think Judge is at 55 right now. I think Mantle is third for the Yankees with 56 was his high. So Aaron Judge, for the most storied franchise in Major League Baseball, is going to pass Mickey Mantle here probably next week, right? And he's going to probably tie or beat Ruth and Maris at 60 and 61. And regardless of what you think about the Bonds, the McGwire, the Sosa numbers, getting that Yankee home run record is pretty remarkable for a guy, Aaron Judge, who I don't think there's any steroid implications around that guy. He's just turned into a beast. He's an absolute monster. I don't know why teams are still pitching to him. A lot of teams aren't. They're kind of trying to pitch around him, and that's what's led to the Yankees being really, really bad over the last 3 months, except for against the Twins. But he might see one or two good pitches a game, and he hits that pitch 480 feet. It's incredible what he's doing.
Yeah, it really is, Tim. And I like how, I've heard people talk about, well, this isn't that big of a deal because Roger Maris doesn't have the home run record anymore. And it's like, why are these people still, hung up on the non-steroid home run record? Well, like you mentioned, this is the Yankees home run record that we're talking about, which is still a big deal. And it's still incredible that the Yankees, club home run record has stood for what year was that set? In the 50s? 60s? Wasn't
it 61?
61. Yeah, he had 61 and 61. Yeah, which is stood for 60 years. So it is a huge story. It's almost a shame these last couple months where the Yankees have been on this unprecedented skid. They've been like the worst team in baseball, other than when they played the Twins, for the second half of the season. And so, it helped Judge that they got to play the Twins this week. And so he hit he's hit one more home run. He's probably hit another one tonight against the Twins.
No, he's hit two against the Twins.
He's at two against. Yeah, he's got back on track against the Twins.
I don't know why. Why wouldn't the Twins just walk him every time? Literally every time. Stanton's not hitting behind him. It's like Marwin Gonzalez hitting behind him. Just walk him, even if you have to like load the bases.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that specifically with the Twins' history against the Yankees, Judge is gonna hit. Chances are he's gonna have a home run against you guys.
Yeah, if Louis Varner is starting, making his major league debut, it's like, well, we know Judge will hit a home run in the fifth.
Yeah, I know. And maybe since we are kind of away from like Yankees media and stuff like that, it seems like the Yankees struggles have kind of lessened the media impact of Judge's home run race. Like if the Yankees were like up 20 games and, in the division and were, just cruising to the playoffs like they normally would, the story would be Judge's home run record race specifically. But because they've been
I feel like it's gone both ways. Like because Judge has been so phenomenal, people have not been as hard on the Yankees for it being in the skid. And because the Yankees have been in the skid, people aren't celebrating Judge as much as they should.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. It was funny. Like, I know we're not supposed to be we're not talking about the Twins Yankees record and stuff like that, but it was funny. Like I was on Yankees Twitter a little bit yesterday when the Yankees swept the Twins in the doubleheader. And it's like they're all talking about how like, man, it's nice to have the Twins. Like they're our best friend. They, we schedule them and they just like get us back on track with this doubleheader sweep. Like it's just funny how it's really unbelievable how bad the Twins have been against the Yankees. Like I remember growing up watching Torrey Hunter give interviews and how scared he was of Roger Clemens and all this stuff. And it just hasn't changed. No matter who the manager is, who the players are, we just cannot beat them.
In the last 15 years, the Yankees have not won a World Series title since 2008 or 9. And really since then, the only team that they've beaten the playoffs is the Twins.
I know. Well, yeah, I saw since 2002, the Twins winning percentage against teams other than the Yankees have been almost like they've won almost 51 or 52% of their games. Against the Yankees, we've won like a little bit more than 20% of our games. It's just unbelievable.
All right, Timmy Trumpets, Neil. We're staying in New York. Edwin Diaz, when he comes out to close the game for the Mets in the ninth, he's been the best, if not the best, one of the best closers in baseball all season. He's got this awesome walkout song by a guy by the name of Timmy Trumpets. It's fantastic. They actually had the trumpet player, Timmy Trumpet, out there to play it live the other night. It's probably been the best viral sensation baseball's had because every time he comes out, it ends up making the rounds around social media. It's really, really a cool entrance. What's been your thoughts around Timmy Trumpets?
Yeah, I think it's awesome. And, that's my main thought. The one thing I'd said, and I know you mentioned this earlier on, like you wish that I think it's so new now where like the fans in the stands they're not really getting involved in it all that much. Like they're just kind of like have their phones out and just, trying to get videos of it or whatever the case may be. And I think maybe as it has time to rest in the Mets fans' imagination, they don't feel the need to like just take their phones out, and they may like just start, experiencing it in more of a way than just having their phones out and filming it. But other than that, I think it's cool. Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that I know Joe Schomburg likes that we disagree on this podcast, but I agree with you that I wish that it was a little bit more organic from the fans. Like it's a great walkout. It's amazing. The fans love it, but all the fans are just videotaping it instead of like kind of participating in the song. It's like nobody knows the song itself. They just like the drama that it creates. But what I think is going to be cool is the Mets are going to make the playoffs, and we're going to get Timmy Trumpets in October. And we might get Timmy Trumpets in the NLCS. We might get Timmy Trumpets in the World Series. And that's going to be electric. Like 10 o'clock at night, game 5, game 7 of the NLCS, and Diaz comes out in a tie game or a one-run game, and Timmy Trumpets comes on against the Braves or something. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I do hope we get that. I didn't realize. So Timmy Trumpet, I just figured it was like a Hispanic song, but he's Australian. Timmy Trumpet. I thought he was like Hispanic from like the Bronx. But
Yeah, I have no idea.
he's a 40-year-old Australian. And
How about that?
Yeah, I do too.
I didn't even know they played the trumpet down under.
Yeah, I didn't either. I haven't really had much to do with trumpets in general since I stopped playing the trumpet in middle school band.
Yeah, I quit in 8th grade or after 8th grade. I made it through middle
Yeah.
school.
Yeah, I wish I would have stuck it out.
All right, last thing here, Neil, before we wrap up, the Queen Elizabeth died today. You are the resident historian here on the Moonlight Graham Show. Any thoughts about the monarchy, about Queen Elizabeth that you'd like to share with the listeners?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts to share on it. You know, what I saw today, like her first prime minister that served under her, Winston Churchill, was born in like 1875, and now she met the like most recent UK prime minister who was born in 1975.
Wow.
And so it's incredible just like the career she had, and she basically oversaw like the complete dismantling of the British Empire. It'll be interesting to see King Charles steps onto the throne. He's not very popular. It'll be interesting to see if the British monarchy can withstand his unpopularity.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of democracy, as everybody knows. But it would kind of be fun to see just the king take back the crown and be like, you know what, I'm just going to go back to ruling.
Yeah, no, I'd be interested in seeing how that goes too.
You know,
I'm hoping. Yeah,
like what if Charles has just been sitting on it for a while and been like, you know what, things are getting a little loose around here, and way too many people have a say in things, and I got my own ideas about how to run this place.
Yeah, that'd definitely be a curveball. But
Like,
I mean, I know it's a constitutional monarchy, but like Britain is one of the like, you know, not that they didn't invent democracy, but like as far as like modern representative government, like they're one of the forebears of it. I mean, they still have the unelected head of state, but basically just a figurehead at this point.
right. Yeah, that's what kind of bothers me is the figurehead thing. Like, I think I'd have more respect for the monarchy if they did something.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd say is, and I feel like this is less of the case than what I've realized before. Like I always thought the Queen had this role of being like this apolitical figure who was beloved by both sides of the aisle, who the whole country could rally around. And I think that's kind of been proving not the case when I see Twitter and people just like cheering her death, specifically British people who, I don't know, whatever the case may be. But I feel like that could be a good thing to have someone who represented the nation who was apolitical. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it. I think it's interesting that there is still a King of England. Well, there was a Queen of England, and now there's a King of England again. You know, I think that is kind of cool, but I don't really understand their role. And I've never been one that's really into the royals.
Yeah, I still follow like the like, you know, those little magazine covers you see at like Walmart and stuff that have like these specific like royalty news and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Whatever. We don't need to get in that. We'll have to start a Moonlight Graham British Royals podcast.
All right. Well, that was your CyHawk and Moonlight Baseball Hour of the week. Neil, Louie, Caroline, everybody good?
I think we're good. Everyone's sleeping in this house besides me and Brooke. So thanks for having me back on, Tim.
Sounds good. Thanks, Neil.
It's Moonlight Graham, yeah. It's a pretty good program, broadcasting to the heartland. stories for the everyman. It's Moonlight Graham, yeah. Please follow us on Instagram. You're loving us on Twitter too. You download every pod we do. It's Moonlight Graham.